It's hard to overstate how big a deal this case is. We mentioned it to you last night. Vergara versus California. This is an earthquake through the education environment. A California judge ruled unconstitutional on Tuesday California's teacher tenure dismissal and layoff laws. This is a massive case, and here's the background of it. It's, as I said, called Vergara versus California. Now, it had 9 plaintiffs. Here's some of them you can see in a picture here, named for Beatrice Vergara and 9 other California students who sued as the plaintiffs in this case. The judge in this case suggested that 2 specific things in California's laws are unconstitutional. First, the teachers are permitted to earn lifetime employment after, get this, 18 months. They get tenure after 18 months, well before their performance can merit that sort of guarantee. And second, the dismissal process for ineffective teachers is cumbersome and costly and doesn't work out, is essentially the last in, first out teacher firing system. This is what the judge had to say specifically. He said, distilled to its basics, the state defendants, interveners' position requires them to defend the position that the state has a compelling interest in the de facto, this is the important part, separation of students from competent teachers, and a like interest in the retention of incompetent ones. So you're essentially guaranteeing that students and competent teachers are separated and incompetent teachers are retained. He said that is a violation of the California Constitution when you add this on with it as well. The evidence is also clear that the churning, which they call the dance of lemons, of teachers caused the lack of effective dismissal statutes and the last in, first out effect, high poverty and minority students disproportionately. This in turn greatly affects the stability of the learning process to the detriment of these students. So low income and minority students were essentially forced to take the bad teachers. It violated this in the California Constitution. A person may not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law or denied equal protection of the laws. It basically echoes the United States Constitution there as well. So guys, this is massive. First of all, this will not stop at California. If this succeeds in California beyond this singular judge, you will see cases like this across the nation. And the truth is, this is doomsday for the teachers' unions and their stranglehold on education.
This is, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and it should be. I mean, the California 16 or 18 months to get tenure or get fired is ridiculous. 41 other states, it's at least 3 years. I mean, how do you judge a teacher's performance?
Still 3 years.
Yeah, but at least it's 3 years. At least it's like 3 classrooms worth of kids to determine your effectiveness. But they also, the black and Latino students who suffered the most. In, like you mentioned, 43% for black students more likely to be taught by a teacher in the lower 5%, and for Latino students, it was 68% more likely to have a teacher in the lower 5% over white students. That is just dooming these kids for failure in the long run, and it's thanks to the teachers' unions. And this is hopefully going to be something that pries that away.
Will, you mentioned the domino effect. There's going to be a domino effect of other cases, I think, that will be brought like this. People bring similar lawsuits under other state constitutions, but there's also the political domino effect that I think the left is particularly concerned about here. They rely on teachers' unions to be a stalwart base of the Democratic Party, and once you start to break this apart in California, you can break it apart in other states as well, and I think this has another domino effect, in a sense, a political one.
There's an interesting thing happening on the left, though, where they are no longer unified in their lockstep arm embrace of the teachers union. We saw here in New York, Andrew Cuomo side on the side of charter schools. I'll say this, I think we have Arne Duncan on this as well. Arne Duncan celebrated. This is Obama's Department of Education head. If we can put that up, he said, the students who brought the lawsuit are, unfortunately, just 9 out of millions of young people in America who are disadvantaged by laws, practices, and systems that fail to identify and support our best teachers and match them with our neediest students. Today's court decision is a mandate to fix these problems.
The shift is happening now, but the left is still all about teachers unions. They're cracks, but not a fissure.
Well, and unfortunately, our Secretary of Education is one of the last ones to catch on to this. And, I mentioned a lot on this show how I'm from Wisconsin, where really this battle was brewing years and years ago when Governor Walker took on teachers unions on the financial side of things, trying to restructure how they do their benefits. But he also did changes to tenure there. And this is very important because it started the ball rolling. We're talking about this having a cascading effect across the nation. These battles have been being fought, but up until recently, they weren't being won. So I think that this is just one in a long line of battles where we've seen success against teachers unions, and the political ramifications will be huge if they continue to be successful.
So I want to dissent from all of you on this. The outcome of this is obviously a virtuous one. The California teachers unions and laws are crazy. But there is a big difference between this case and what you're describing in Wisconsin, which was done through the legislature and signed by Governor Walker. I think this case may well be nonsense. I think it may well be the sort of case that conservatives and people who believe in constitutional originalism and who believe that words matter would normally oppose if they didn't like the outcome. I think that trying to decide what is in the compelling interest...
Why? Because it's a
It's
court
judicial,
case?
it's judicial fiat that we
if
like.
you look at the precedent in California, they tend to give a lot of deference to the legislature in this area. It says here that the state has not proven compelling interest. When we look at 14th Amendment cases, and this equal protection clause is largely a copy of the federal 14th Amendment, we're generally fed up with, for example, gay marriage cases. I'm in favor of gay marriage, but we don't like the way the courts have imposed that. At least
All that's valid, Charles. It is important.
Worrying. I think this is worrying.
It's also important to underline we are talking about a state constitution, not the United States
I
Constitution.
understand that, but it's the same words and it's the same problem.
Let me bring in Kara Kerwin. She's president of the Center for Education Reform. Kara, we are sitting here speculating on the potential impact. I want to share with you these. Tara talked about how more likely it is for Black and Latino students to receive bad teachers. I have these stats as well. If you have a bad teacher, it apparently sets a kid back a year's total in learning and $50,000 over their lifetime in earnings. They can affect a classroom by $1.4 million in lifetime earnings.
No, it's the impact that our education system has on our children is truly amazing when you look at the numbers that way. Look, we know California was spending about $70 billion in the 2013-2014 year, $70 billion for only about 22% of its fourth graders proficient in math. Clearly, the return on investment's wrong. Clearly, we're leaving too many poor performers in the, in their teacher seats. In fact, over the past decade, I believe only 19 teachers were dismissed in California for poor performance. So clearly there's something askew, and this court case truly will send shockwaves across the country because the implications are not just about our teachers and our students, but this has, for the first time, established education as a civil rights issue. This is the first time. Brown v. Board of Ed didn't even go that far. This is now the civil rights issue of our time, and it's extremely important that we keep the momentum going. And look, let's be really clear. This is great for teachers as well as students. This gives teachers some autonomy, gives teachers the ability to improve outcomes for students, and it'll attract teachers to the profession. We have a hard time retaining and attracting teachers. This is going to turn all of it, everything we knew about public education in America, on its head, and that's a good thing.
Kara, this is Tara. I have a question. George Bush, when he was running for president in 2000, said that education was the soft bigotry. It was one of the soft bigotry of low expectations, and it was a civil rights issue even back then in 2000, which I think is what motivated him with the No Child Left Behind. As well intentioned as it was, that was a failure too. But my question to you is, what do you think is the motivating factor? What's the impetus for lawsuits like this and teacher tenure being questioned? Is it just because the failure of our public schools has become so magnified as of late with Common Core and different things going on in minority areas and the charter schools in New York? Do you think that now people are starting to pay attention that maybe it's the teachers, since all these government programs and things hasn't worked?
Well, it's not, we can't just point fingers at teachers because there's a lot of really, really great educators out there. I think it's the policies that are in place. And in so many states where, in California too, we tried, people tried to get this done legislatively, and it's just not possible because of the political machine that is the blob, the big learning organizational bureaucracy, which includes all of the various groups, including the unions, the people that are standing in our way from allowing kids to have a great education. And so this, this is really, I think people are starting to pay attention more because they now know that they have choices. They now know there's something better, and they've seen it because of the success of charters in places like New York or elsewhere. I mean, across the country, charters are succeeding.
Will, one thing that got me to pay attention with this specific case was the data was astonishing, by the way, at what a difference a bad teacher or even a good teacher makes in a student's learning. To the point you made, by the way, Charles, I see exactly what you're saying, by the way. I think you're actually correct. I think that
I'm sympathetic to it as well.
I think that this is we should be very clear about this. This is a policy outcome we like that could play out in other places across the country. It uses the sort of living constitution sensibility that the left has against the left, but you open a Pandora's box when you do that, because equal education, what if you have charter schools? That's not equal anymore. They're getting something different. They're better. You could shut those down.
So
Yeah,
it opens a
shut
big...
them down under exactly this clause.
That's exactly
I
right.
do want to clarify
Good
that
point.
this is a narrative that's emerging at the same time this is happening in other places over the country, and that is this, that unions do not serve the populations they pretend to. This is a disservice to teachers who are forced to stay in crap situations and work alongside other teachers who are not fulfilling their responsibilities. We've seen this with the VA. We've seen this across the nation. I think it's an important narrative for our side who wants to improve schools.
So I would say, Charles, I am very sympathetic to your point. You actually made me think about it as we sat here at this table. And the truth is the future may be more positive in recognizing that some Democrats are starting to peel away, that politically, Arnie Duncan, Andrew Cuomo are actually starting to move towards our side of this issue. Kara, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Misfit Stories are up next.